Welcome back to another episode of Chew on This. Today, we have a special episode powered by Mercury, and we have Kyle, who's the CEO and co-founder of Alaskan Salmon Company. It's a really interesting business and one that isn't unique to the ones that we've had on our company, which is typically, health and wellness brand, beauty brands. This is something that's going to be a little bit out of the box, and I'm really excited about it because not only do you have Kyle, who's an incredible founder and a builder, but he's building something that's unique, that's going to be having stories that you haven't heard about and things that you probably don't know how to build. First of all, Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time out to come out all the way from Alaska. First of all, it was incredible for you to be able to be at least in a neighboring town to be able to come over to our studio, because I know we were going to do this remote. Thank you so much for taking the time out. For the few people who don't know you, few people who don't know your company, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me. Been a fan of the podcast, so I'm very fortunate and feel very grateful for being here. My name is Kyle Lee. I'm the founder of Alaskan Salmon Company, born and raised in Alaska, and I've been commercial fishing for the past 10 years.
You say commercial fishing. Tell us what does that even really mean, right? Like, for those who don't do fishing or maybe have fished once with our dads, like what is commercial fishing?
Yeah, so what differentiates commercial fishing versus, recreational sports fishing is we're going out there with the intent of catching a certain species to provide and sell to families across
and that's salmon
and commerce. Yep.
Got it.
That's salmon.
And so you're in Alaska, you're doing commercial fishing, right? With the intent to sell salmon. When did this all come about? How did this even, when were you like, I need to go get a commercial license and I need to go and get a D2C website up and I'm going to sell this, cross country? Give us a little bit of that.
That is such a good question. And when we say it out loud like that, commercial fishing with the intent to sell, it sounds so formal, but that just wasn't the process when I started. Growing up, my parents had fast food restaurants. So
cool.
I grew up rolling egg rolls, working the cash registers. So my hands were pretty soft.
Yeah.
Never done any sort of physical labor, no blue collar job. So, my best friend, his family, they were generational fishermen, commercial fishermen. So I was like, that looks pretty badass.
Yeah.
Love to try it. And really, I went out and fished for 2 weeks during the summer, and it was blue skies, 70 degrees, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
So you guys get to do this for work. As you're out there fishing with your best friends, this is awesome. So when I first got into fishing, it was just out of pure joy for it. You're fishing in some of the most beautiful waters. The scenery is just insane. So yeah, that was the perception going into it. Little did I know, as starting any business, there's just so much more.
Before we dive in, a quick word about today's sponsor, Mercury. If you run an e-commerce brand, you know how messy managing money can get. Accounts everywhere, surprise fees, sending invoices, inevitable delays. That's why we brought everything under one roof with Mercury. Now we've got our accounts, credit cards, capital, all in one platform, built for how e-commerce actually works. And on top of that, we're earning 1.5% cash back on all of our credit card spend. We're also sending wires and ACHs with zero stress and zero fees. And we can track every transaction under one clean dashboard. The team at Mercury put together a special offer just for our listeners. So listen closely. When you deposit $5,000 or spend $5,000 using your Mercury IO card, within your first 90 days, you can get $250 back. Do both, where you deposit $5,000 and spend $5,000 on your card, you'll actually get $500 back. Go to mercury.com/chewonthis to get started today. Now, let's get back to the episode. So walk us through that now. So you fall in love with the idea of you can do something you love and it can also be a job.
Yep.
And, you decide to obviously go the route of, all right, well, you could have gone maybe wholesale. You could have gone maybe a different route that, sometimes you see certain craftsmen in different industries like that. But you went the D2C route. Tell me a little bit about that. How has that been growing that? And what are some of those challenges you kind of already poked out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it wasn't D2C by choice originally.
Okay.
When we first found out that there's this opportunity, I was going to, when I first started commercial fishing, I was doing my undergrad in Colorado.
Got it.
So I saw the salmon at the grocery store marked as wild salmon. Looks so different from what I had in my freezer. I brought some for you today. We'll check it out later.
Yeah, let's do that.
It just looks so different. And then I learned that the supply chain for seafood is, very archaic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of middlemen. But in this day and age, it doesn't have to be, right? We've got all these tools, direct communication directly to the customer. So our initial thesis was, you know, who's going to care the most about the highest quality salmon, and like who's going to be our earliest customers. So we started off with, you know, Japanese sushi chefs, Michelin restaurants, because those guys already know quality. So we don't need to convince them. We just need them to try it.
Yep.
So we started off getting into a few of those restaurants, and things were going well. And then COVID happened.
Got it.
And so we saw that great initial traction.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then everything just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, we know we have this good product. People are still going to eat seafood. How do we do that?
Yeah.
And then started diving into the world of digital marketing, found out about Shopify, Klaviyo, and all that.
Yep.
That was a very quick initial
So is that
pivot.
2022?
2021.
2021. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So 2021 comes, you start to pivot into D2C, right? And how different is that world for you, right? You're kind of, you're doing what one, you're obviously out there literally creating and catching your product, right? Like I don't think anyone who can say that we relate to you can really relate to you, right? Like I go to a manufacturer and say I need X amount of collagen powder, and they have it ready in 4 to 6 weeks, right? You're out there on a boat, literally catching the product you're about to ship, but then you also need to worry about, well, how do I get traffic? How do I get people interested, etc. So tell me about how that world started now in 2020.
Yeah. Also, like you're making supplements sound easy. I'm sure. Like we both have different problems. You know, in rebuttal to that, you know, we're fortunate our product's already perfect. We don't have to manufacture or create any recipes.
Fair.
You know?
Fair.
Yeah, buying seafood online, and I think a lot of food is a new consumer behavior. And so when we first started, in order to get traffic, we didn't have a budget, so I knew we weren't going to do any media spend. So it was a pure SEO play.
Wow.
You know, so built we didn't even have a shoppable website, just a landing page with my story, what I wanted to do, email capture, and then I would just write blogs.
Wow.
And then I, you know, started to take more SEO classes. And then, I mean, some of those blogs I wrote in the first couple months are still some of our best performing today.
Wow.
And then I think that just shows that, you know, the quality of information that you put out there, if it resonates with people,
Super important.
yeah, super important. So
wow.
Yeah, we started with purely SEO, but I will say we got very, very lucky because of one of those articles a New York Times editor read it, and I think we had some contradicting beliefs.
Okay.
So she sent me an email kind of like ripping me a new one about like we were talking about her product, and at the time we wanted to sell it for $100 a pound. And then she wrote like a scathing email to me, but I took it as an opportunity to educate her. Hey, there's hundreds of different salmon fisheries in Alaska.
Yeah.
The one we're fishing out of is the best because X, Y, and Z. You know, a couple weeks later, then she put us in print.
Really?
Which was like, you know,
Wow.
you can't plan for that, and we certainly couldn't have.
Was that circa like 2021 or 2022 still?
It was 3 months into the business.
3 months into the business.
So
okay.
Like,
so then organic.
So that email capture we had generated like 4,000 people, which was crazy for us.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, we got very lucky.
I hope you sent her some salmon.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay. So again, I think so much of your story is like the untraditional roots of what you see in e-commerce and D2C, right? Like typically now a lot of people start their store and they hop on Meta, right? And they craft up some ads and they start running traffic and, oh, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. You didn't have a choice. You had to figure out another way.
Yeah, didn't have a choice. And, you know, content wasn't something I was good at. And I just knew it just takes a lot of money, you know, to hack money. You just have to have enough to test.
You do.
And have processes to test it. And what I know is true is, okay, salmon is something that a lot of people want and are curious about. So, you know, Google is the first place to capture those people who are already lower in the funnel.
Yep. And then talk to me about the growth in 2022 to 2023 and onwards. Did you guys start to shift towards more organic spending through Meta and some of the other platforms?
We actually didn't start spending on Meta till this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So
everything's been months ago.
Everything's been organic in Google?
Yeah, organic in Google, because so the wild salmon season it fluctuates every year depending on what the salmon are doing, but typically around mid-May through like August, September.
Got it.
You know, we were focused on a specific type. So we had like an 8-week, we had a 2-month window. So we would go in and catch and buy as much salmon as we could.
Okay.
And then through SEO and Google search and our email marketing, every year we'd sell out by October.
So then is there an element of that seasonality to your business of where even if you catch way more salmon, you can't sell
It,
it through like December, January if you
it's a
wanted
working
to?
capital issue.
Got it.
Yeah. So like I'm one of the many fishermen that fish for the company.
Yep.
And so we pay all of our fishermen, net zero. They deliver, we pay them right away. If they got bills, they got families to pay
Yep.
or families to feed. So it becomes a working capital issue.
Very interesting.
So especially with D2C, we're a small company, right? And we still are, but we would try to buy as much as we could, but it just slowly.
Of course. No, and you have literally people, it's a people business. So,
But to kind of help with that, we started doing pre-sales.
smart.
Yeah, to
You
kind
start
of
to also gauge your demand through that.
yeah,
Smart.
it helps.
Really smart.
Yeah, it helps a lot on both fronts.
It's really interesting. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting here is you're based in Alaska.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the one territory where, when everyone gives you shipping rates, they're like, "Oh, by the way, in Alaska, right? Is this?" And, it's in some ways an afterthought. In some ways it's in this, corner that everyone knows on the map, but
yeah.
not many people know too much else out of there. How difficult and how many challenges do you face in just the logistical pieces? The fact that maybe even just like locality wise, you don't have
Yeah.
too many people who speak the same, language of D2C. Like, tell me a little bit about some of those elements.
It's funny you talk about, oh, we ship everywhere in the continental U.S., but not Alaska.
Yeah.
And so think about us, we're the inverse.
Right.
Everyone we want to sell to is outside of Alaska.
Right.
And ship to. So, our shipping rates when we started were $8 a pound. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, we would put a 5-pound box of fish,
$40.
5 pounds of dry ice in the box. No, our shipping was like $80-$90 per box.
Insane.
It's insane.
I didn't even know about the dry ice piece. Yeah.
Dry ice, in like Kansas City is like 65 cents a pound.
Yeah.
We pay $2.80 in Alaska. So there's like so many things that were, it wasn't ideal place for D2C and there also weren't many companies doing, like all the other seafood companies are big wholesale.
Right.
So like the distribution lines just weren't established.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really interesting. So, you're obviously dealt with those challenges now, and then you also need to make, e-commerce work from a margin standpoint. So obviously you're forced to do the SEO piece. You're forced to go organic,
Yep.
which I think is almost a really cool part to how building businesses sometimes work out, which is you don't have the luxuries or choices that some other brands do.
Yeah.
And then you also don't have the luxury of like just popping up on TikTok Shop and, starting to push through sales there on your product. So tell me a little bit about, and I'm very curious on, were there additional growth strategies or did you ever tap into influencers? Did you ever tap into some other ways to get the word out there for your brand?
Yeah, we tried a couple different growth strategies. I would say in year 2 we started seeding to creators. I knew there was power in social media, but we hadn't done it ourselves. We haven't experienced it for ourselves. We've seen brands like Avi and other brands crush it and have these super fans, right? Who are actually using your customers who are actually using the product and they're preaching it to their community.
That's right.
And so yeah, we seeded a few, probably 50 creators, but the biggest value we got out of that was, because we had no brand, no one really knew who we were. We had maybe 100 followers. I created a video of just because when people get this email and they get the product, they're going to look up who we are.
Right.
They're going to check out our social. So I did a quick video like, hey, my name's Kyle. I'm a commercial fisherman. Just give a quick, 30-second video of who I am and what we want to do. Just like my original landing page.
Yep.
Posted it. And then that was our first quote unquote viral video.
Wow.
And so, it was great to connect with all the creators, but it also helped like kind of put us on, hey, we can build our own social channels as well.
Yeah. And my next piece was to touch on, being able to take content on your own and handling that piece. How much of how do you manage, some of the dopamine that comes from it, right? Like, oh, we went viral, or oh wow, we got a bunch of views, and then maybe your next video doesn't, but you still need to stay motivated to do it because it is a source, an engine. How do you manage your time with that?
it is a lot of fun and cool to see when we get a lot of views, high engagements, but
Right.
and it's great interacting with the community,
Yeah.
but I don't get really excited until we start seeing like metrics move on
Yep.
the actual website.
Makes sense.
But I know building a community is a long-term game, so
Right.
it's fun interacting and seeing what works. Even though we've been posting for about 2 years now, we maybe only post 10 to 20 videos a year.
Right.
So still a lot of learning. But yeah, we get pretty neutral about it.
No, I mean, sometimes it's the quality over quantity piece makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
A few interesting questions I have is, you know, have you ever been truly scared out there at any point where like, give me a point where it's just like, holy shit, this is
Yeah,
scary.
it's insane. So, I was telling you, I had deckhanded for 2 weeks with my friend, and then the next year I bought my own boat, which was so dumb. I should not have done it. Everyone that I had talked to was like, "Hey, I really like fishing. I'm going to buy in." They're like, "Don't do it."
Yeah.
Banks want to give me money. They're like, "No, you don't have no experience. Don't do it." But I just took out a ton of personal loans. I was like, "I'm doing it anyway."
Wow.
But they were right because I didn't know what I was doing. I grew up in a restaurant. I'd never even changed oil in my car. I had no mechanical experience.
Yeah.
And it's so much different being, let's say like an employee versus a CEO. So when I was a deckhand on the boat, I didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
All I had to do was work hard. That's easy.
Right.
So my first year, um, it was, it was a good wake up call, but just like the most basic things, understanding weathers. But I would say one of the scariest things for me was I had taken on so much debt that I had to fish every day. Every time they opened the fishery, no matter how
Where?
bad it was, I had to go out.
Wow.
Um, and so it was like one of the worst storms of the year, but it's fine. Like I'm in a boat, they're built to float. I went out there, we're fishing, we're just getting crushed. And it's like, it was so bad. I was laying on the deck, we're picking fish, I'm just throwing up and like we're just getting rained on, the boat's just getting trashed. And then, finally I get up and I look around and there's no one out in the ocean. And so I started calling all my buddies like, "Oh, where are you guys?" Like, "Oh, we're back in port. We didn't go out." And then, I told the crew, I was like, "All right, we're gonna pack our shit. We're gonna head back to town." But then at the time, the Coast Guard made an announcement over the radio that all these these channels, there's these small channels where we drive back to enter safety,
Sure.
were closed. And what that means was because the water's more shallow, waves were just breaking. So if we were to try to go through, we would have capsized and Coast Guard would not be able to come rescue us.
Wow.
So we just had to weather out the storm for 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah, it sucked.
You just stayed out there?
We had to.
Is it like a cover? So you have some covered area or?
Well, yeah, we would go inside the cabin, but
Okay.
so we're just like getting rocked.
That's
nonstop.
insane.
It was really brutal. And so that's when I learned, you got to live to fish another day.
Yeah.
Making money is important, but
Yeah.
nothing's more important than
course.
life and health.
Life and health.
So that was
Wow. Wow. That is
crazy one.
gives you chills. That's crazy. I was just gonna ask you, what's the strangest thing that ever happened to you on water? That's definitely the scariest, but anything strange?
Strange. I can't. I'll have to think about it. We'll come back.
If
to
we
that.
come back to it.
Yeah.
If someone said they wanted to do what you're doing, what's the one truth you'd make sure that they understood first?
Your why, and do you truly have conviction to do it?
Mm.
No matter what venture, whether it's starting a business, commercial fishing, nothing's going to be easy, so there's going to be tough times. And, the ones that succeed are the ones who are kind of relentless. And no matter how tough it is, they've got the discipline to just make their way,
Great advice.
Let's be honest. No one starts an e-commerce brand because they love managing finances. But the further you scale, the more critical it becomes. At Obvi, we got tired of logging into 5 different tools just to see where our money was going. That's when we made the switch to Mercury. Now, everything's under one roof. Accounts, credit cards, capital, all in a single dashboard that's actually built for how e-commerce works. We're earning 1.5% cash back on every single dollar spent, sending wires without delays or sneaky fees, and getting funding with terms that actually make sense. And for our listeners, Mercury is putting together something special. Deposit or spend $5,000 in your first 90 days and you'll get $250. And if you do both, you'll get $500. Go to mercury.com/chewonthis to get started today.
Now, let's get back to the episode. You know, I want to circle back up on the fact that you're in Alaska, right? And I think one of the pieces, there's a lot of elements in that, right? There is an element of like being remote that allows you to be super disciplined potentially, right? You don't have maybe the millions of distractions that other people may have. But at the same time, your resources can also be limited, right? And I think one of that comes down to when you're starting a business, comes down to like, all right, well, what are the few things you fundamentally need, right? It's like, go create an LLC, right? You get your EIN. And the next step becomes you gotta like, well, I gotta either put in money or I gotta collect money somewhere. And so you go need to open a bank account, right? What's the scene out in Alaska?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of, legacy banks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only option you have.
Yeah, only option. There legacy banks, and then also there's a few like, hyper local regional banks. But it was, we were banking with Wells Fargo for the first, couple years.
Okay.
That's also all I knew too.
Right.
Right. Being in Alaska, we're so shielded off from any sort of tech innovation or like anything that's new or improved because we're, 5 to 7 years behind everyone else.
Right.
And so it's not until not unless you listen to a podcast like this or, you're attending events, you're going to get those out. So yeah, that's all I knew. I honestly thought all banks were the same.
Right.
So I was like, I've been banking with Wells Fargo my whole life, my personal stuff. So why not loop my business into that?
Makes sense. And then you made a switch to, I believe it's Mercury.
Yeah.
How's that been? And what are some of those simplifications that came through it?
It's been incredible across many fronts. One is just so much easier to use and like gather any sort of data or reporting.
Yeah.
Some of these legacy banks, their websites are just insane to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and then also so just the interface is really nice. But there's other things that I really like where now through Mercury, we're able to, we got free wires, US and US currency.
It's $25 every time.
I was gonna say, Wells Fargo, they charge me $30 every time.
Yeah.
And also when we're paying our bills through ACH, it was 1%.
Yep.
Where now it's free.
Right.
And that all adds up.
It does. It really does.
And so before I was like, okay, I'm not paying 1% for this.
Right.
So I would have to go into the branch and pay. That's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And just a time thing, right?
Yeah.
The other thing about, I think, Mercury and a lot of these tech-enabled solutions, right? I think what they allow you to do is, if that part feels easy, a lot of the other stuff feels even easier, right? It's like you don't want to have a challenging day in what you need to do to run your business.
Yeah.
And then you go and log into your portal to figure out the money and payments, and you're like, shit, I don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. So when we first started, the seasons were always so busy.
Yeah.
Busy just catching fish, selling fish. I didn't really have time for ops or finances.
Right.
All I really cared about was like really high level. Okay, this is our cost. This is what we're selling for. I'd kind of ballpark the variable costs in between.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until 3 months later at the end of the season, I'd reconcile and track everything, just because it was just too clustered. I couldn't really have any visibility into it. But through Mercury, we have so many separate accounts that, just by logging in, just a quick view. Okay, I know, our restaurant business is this, our D2C business is this, so that has been really nice.
Yeah, no, I think even for us, when we made the move, I think we were, at Legacy as well. And I think for us, the biggest piece was like the savings of the transaction stuff was helpful. But I think being able to actually have an app that just logs in and tells you exactly what you want to see and know, and you don't have to toggle and press a bunch of buttons. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of work, but it's just one less thing to worry about. Like it's one less thing to click around and figure out where you need to go or figure out what you need to do. And so I think that's one piece that really helps.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some other, tech enablements or things that you implemented in your business that have been very helpful? If you had to call out anything else.
Honestly, it's pretty much, there's a lot to uncover there, but it's just like the full stack. Even if we start on the e-commerce side, a lot of Shopify is like the first layer. That was really, like when you first start and you get Shopify, and then you start to dig a little bit deeper. You add these channels such as like Klaviyo or Attentive to build, and then once you kind of learn that, there's additional add-ons that make that even more efficient.
Right.
You know? And especially now in the day of, you know, AI and testing, we implement a lot of those things to, constantly test and see what works and what doesn't work.
No, that's awesome. I'm curious, you know, when you look at something like salmon, right, and people buying it in potentially bulk, or people buying it, to obviously keep in their home and utilize as they need. When it comes to something that I feel like isn't a retention rate that is often talked about, right? Like, people typically know retention rates for beauty, health, wellness, apparel, some of the categories we all talk about, but the category of let's say seafood, right? Like the retention rate maybe isn't something that is publicly talked about, or there isn't too many benchmarks, etc. How do you work on determining if your business is proving to be something that has good product, good loyalty, getting feedback from your customers? Tell me a little bit about how you understand your business deeper, because you don't have as many open benchmarks.
Yeah, it's been a tough one for us, and that's something we're still solving and learning, because because we were selling out every year, every season it was a new set. We would lose essentially all the data from, like, we'd have some customers come back, but it's really hard to reacquire 6 months later. So this is our first 12 months of revenue, and really we'll gather our data of how we're performing, and then look at it holistically and be like, okay, this is what we've been doing for retention.
Right.
Do we think we're doing the best that we can? Right. Or it's like, okay, we know there's a lot of cracks in our email flows, or our subscriptions aren't optimized, our landing pages aren't optimized. So then we say, okay, this is where we're at when we're operating at a 65%. If we invest, we can, we'll make as like, okay, it should be here.
Right.
But it is hard when there isn't a benchmark.
Right.
How is that? Like, did you guys deal with that early on?
Yeah, for us, the tricky part was we knew for supplements there was benchmarks, but when we were coming out of the gate in 2018, we had launched flavored collagen was our whole thing, right? We started with flavored collagen, and we were probably only the second company to offer it.
Wow.
Right. And so when you have something that is new or a little bit unique, you have a tough time understanding how to compare it, because I can't go and take my retention rate against Vital Proteins that serves unflavored collagen and built their whole business on unflavored collagen, right? And so knowing that they have a 37.2% retention rate didn't really help me, because it's like, oh, well, mine's flavored. People won't take it as often because it's something that you'll take when you want something flavored, right? It's similar to like drinking seltzer water versus maybe plain water. Like, you'll have flavored seltzer water once in a while, but you'll have water every day, right? So being able to almost craft something that feels like, hey, this is what's working for my business and that's enough for now, was a good starting point for us.
Did you know that going into it, or is that something you discovered?
You had to discover that, right? Because it's like, initially you're trying to chase after these crazy goals that people talk about and crazy numbers people say, and then you're like, that's not going to work for my business. Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so much like great advice out there, but you, as operators, you have to do it for yourself and figure out what works for you.
That's right.
You can have two seafood companies, and you could do the same thing, and one's gonna crush it and one's not.
That's so true.
You just have to do it yourself.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I think out of all of this, right, the one thing that comes out is, if you're building a business with good product, right, at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to come between you is working capital, right? Or some sort of pandemic, right? Type of thing, right? That's the only real, if you really think about it, it's like, I have a good product. The only reason I can't get it into more hands is because I either don't have the money to spend on marketing, or I don't have enough money to make more of it, right? Because if people are enjoying it and buying it, and you have good reviews and you're getting good retention rate and whatnot, the only reason you can't grow is because of money. And then the other side of it is if you get forced into a business model because of whatever's going on in the world, right, to where you can't distribute more. So I think that's the part that's like, you then just go and become excessively obsessed with building great product. Right. I think it's super powerful. Everything you've shared so far has been incredible. It's really, really cool to see your journey. I want to get into some really cool rapid fire questions. And again, feel free to answer this with as much detail or as little, but it's a little bit of a fun way to understand a little bit more about you and your business. But number one was, what was going through your mind that day you decided to toss the academic track and just do and go the open water route?
I knew I was smart enough to get a job if I failed, but I was only young enough and strong enough to do commercial fishing once.
Wow, great answer. What was the moment you realized there has to be a better way to get wild fish to people's tables?
When I was doing my undergrad in Colorado, I played soccer for the university, and I mentioned earlier that
Right.
I saw the salmon at the grocery store, but then also I would cook, salmon, and we do spaghetti nights before our games. And so a lot of great feedback from the guys.
From the guys.
Yep.
How did that unexpected digital connection change the way you run the business? So, when you started the D2C piece, did it have to change a lot of what you were doing in your processes?
Not so much, not on the operations, but like on the selling side, the consumer side. Yeah, completely changed. Because before wholesale, we were just dialing the phone. I'd speak to the chef directly, where digital marketing is a whole new beast.
Yeah.
And I similar to when I got into commercial fishing, I was like, oh, fishing's easy.
Right.
I was like, oh, I'm just going to build a website. This is
Yeah.
this is going to be cake. Like you look up the metrics, like, oh, people get like a 3% conversion rate, no problem. Like
Yeah.
all this traffic's going to start coming in, but that's just not the case. Like you have
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
What's the craziest review you've gotten on your product?
The craziest review I've gotten is that our salmon was dyed. So because the color of our fish is very red. It's very vibrant. And so it was like one of our first 1-star review of like, some lady had ordered and called us out for lying, saying that we claim to be wild when it's very clear the salmon is
The
dyed.
product was that good, huh?
And it was a good,
That's incredible.
there's the wrong one. Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. And on that note, when it comes to educating people about the product being literally so fresh, so different from maybe what they're used to seeing and eating, right? Have you had to pivot into putting disclaimers or educating people in a different way, or are you still generally hoping that people understand that this is literally coming from Alaska?
Yeah. My goal and objective, like with all of our content across, short form videos or our SEO articles, is just pure education. Obviously we sell our products, we sell salmon, but we're a small company and we're also not for everybody.
Yeah.
Taste is subjective and every family has their own nutritional needs. Some places, that's grocery store, like farm salmon might be the only thing they have. Like there's a place in the market for all seafood.
Right.
But I just want to make sure people have the tools they need to make that decision for themselves.
Very cool. I love that. What's one place you would move to if it wasn't Alaska?
One place I would move to? That's a great question. I haven't thought too much.
Love Alaska too much.
Yeah. I was like, there's so much for me to do in Alaska. So
That's awesome. What'd you think of the David protein cod?
they're the
brilliant.
geniuses behind that.
Yeah.
Like they did such a good job, and it's so much fun to be able to, support them
Yeah.
on that campaign. They crushed it.
No, that was
What was your take on it?
it's been an honor working with them on the digital side just as an advisor, but being able to see like this shift, especially while they're waiting for the bars to come out and being able to even move this up and seeing your involvement, I think it's probably one of the most powerful campaigns we've seen in a long time, not just from the fact that they have a lot of media around it, but being able to harness the messaging the way you guys did, of the double entendre on like, hey, compare this to our protein bar, but also it's a product on its own.
Yeah.
Right. And it had this double mixed message, and it got the perfect amount of like crazy responses, hate responses, love responses, and then like marketing genius responses. And I just never have seen a blended, build out like that like ever before. So
Yeah, they
I
created
would
a
love
lot.
for you to share
Yeah.
your story there.
Yeah, they created a lot of good conversations around it. Like you said, there's the full spectrum of people, for and against it. So it was really cool to see. And yeah, Zach and Peter are awesome for doing that.
Yeah.
Their team crushed it.
Yeah.
But Zach didn't tell me how, like, he never told me, like, how much effort they're putting into this campaign. I knew, I knew their thesis because like on their website, even before this, they already had the guide. So they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this campaign about it. I thought it could have been like a PR box for creators. And it's crazy because it almost didn't happen. I'm not even kidding. When I got off the boat from salmon, we were going out fishing for the cod. For our business and also for theirs, and we broke down. Like we made a couple sets and we broke down. So we weren't even near like how much product we needed, let alone how much they needed. So it was a tough call to make, but we were like heading back to port. I was like, I gotta call Zach. And I called him like, hey man, like this is what's going on. We're not gonna be able to, like, we didn't catch as much as we had hoped. But me, Zach and I, we've been working on this for so long, and I didn't want to let him down. So I was like, okay, we caught this much, like we'll split it. We'll take away from what we need, and we'll give half to you guys. And I'm glad.
No, it's incredible. And again, it power to you, because I think one of the most incredible parts of your story is like at the ethos of who you are and what you've been building is you truly care about creating something that's built around your ecosystem and bringing it to people's tables, right? And whether it's through a collaboration and as great as a marketing campaign and a product campaign I've seen with David, or through what you're building with Alaskan Salmon Company, like I think it's incredible to be able to see that you can pivot to still make the ethos of your mission come true. So kudos on building that. Kyle, I've had an incredible time talking to you. I wish we can go on for much longer. The one thing we like to do at each episode at the end, I find it to be very powerful, is we like to give one thing that you would want the listeners and the viewers to walk away with, one thing for them to chew on, one takeaway that can get instilled in their business.
One takeaway about their business.
One takeaway for them to work on their business, or one thing to even as an entrepreneur, build anything.
One thing I'd like to say to a lot of people, you guys know what you need to do for your business, because no one knows your operation and your processes better than you do. So I would say have conviction in what you're feeling and really dive into it. Focus on the channels that you're succeeding at, and just dive deeper and really trust yourself.
True on that.
If you want more from us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and check out the website chewonthis.io.